Hi everybody. Today we're going to work through how to create a birdhouse using the assembly portion of Inventor. Before we get started, I do want you to do one thing. Down here in the search box, I want you to type in file, and what we're going to do is we're going to download and install your drive file stream. I've already installed mine. You guys will be prompted to log into your Google Drive folder, give it access, and then once you click through next, you'll have your file stream installed as well. So it'll look like this, and you'll be able to see it over here on the left hand side. If you go all the way down, you'll be able to see Google Drive file. This is where if I click on it, I will see my drive, team drives, double click on my drive, and this should show you all of your folders that you have currently installed in your Google Drive. Alright, I'm going to create, actually I'm not going to create anything in there just yet. I'll get that out of the way and we can get started. I'll make a folder when we do our first save. I'm going to start in an assembly. So I'm not going to start with a part, I'm going to start with an assembly. And I don't have any parts to assemble, so I'm going to create my parts within the assembly. Before I create my first part, I am going to do a file, save as, and I'm going to save this assembly that I haven't yet started to make yet in that folder. So I'm going to go down here to Google Drive file stream, my drive, I'm going to go to my design processes folder, and I'm going to create a folder right here. You can call it Birdhouse. I'm going to call mine 2019 Birdhouse, and I'm going to click save, and I now have that folder. The assembly I'm going to simply call 2019 Birdhouse and click save. You might get prompted with this same message, just click yes. Alright, so here's my environment. First thing I'm going to do is create. The part that we're going to start with, we're all going to start with, is going to be the front of our birdhouse. And I'm going to navigate to this file location right where we just were. So hit the drop down arrow, find Google Drive file stream, my drive, design processes, find the folder you just made, 2019 Birdhouse in my case, and click save. Click OK, and we're ready to go. What you'll see is you'll see a little stair that's like a little part icon right there, and just click anywhere. We don't have anything created yet, so I'm going to start this anywhere in this space. And what's happened is my assembly has grayed out, and what's still left white is my part that I'm going to start creating, and the tools have switched over to what's familiar to us in our Inventor part creation when we create a new part. So I'm going to do this just like I've done everything else and start with a new sketch. If you do notice over here in the upper right hand corner, you'll see this return button, and we'll use that here in a second. I'm going to go to start new sketch. I'm going to choose the XY plane as I have in the past, and I'm going to start laying this thing out. I'm going to choose the 2-point center rectangle, and I'm going to create a construction line. So these aren't going to actually be the lines of my house, but they are going to define the boundaries of my house. So I'm going to click construction. You'll see that's highlighted blue, that little red shape up there. And I'm going to start right in the center, and I'm going to pull into away from the center. My dimensions across I'm going to choose to be 5, tab, and my dimensions up and down I'm going to choose to be 9, enter. Scroll back and you'll see that I have 5 by 9 high, and that's the size that my birdhouse is going to be within. I'm going to do a pretty traditional birdhouse, 5-point birdhouse. Take off your construction line, and we're going to get started. You might have a rectangular shape, in which case you don't need these construction lines. You can start right off with the shape of your front piece. You don't need to do the construction lines. Mine is going to be a 5-sided shape inside of this box. So you'll see here in a second. I'm going to take a point. This will be the peak of my house. I'm going to drop a point. Just making sure I'm clicking all those points right there. Hit escape to let go. And I'm going to choose my line tool and start clicking start and stop at each one of those points. There you go. Hit escape. Now, I don't know if these things are lined up or symmetrical or anything, so I'm going to do some dimensioning on this. I'm going to say from here to the top of that line, it's close to 3.5, so I'm just going to make it 3.5. Okay, and then I'm going to go from here to the top of this line. Instead of entering 3.5, I could do that. Instead of entering 3.5, I'm just going to click on this 3.5 over here. And what it'll do is it'll make it the same as dimension 2. Okay? And hit enter. Now those two dimensions are the same. If I decided to change this to 3 or 4, this one would change to 4 as well. So I'm going to go back and change it to 3.5. Alright, now I'm going to dimension from here over to this side, and I'm going to make that 1 inch. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click here to there, but instead of selecting 1 inch, I'm just going to click on that dimension so that if I decide to change that, I can. Okay, so I'm going to finish this sketch. Zoom out so I can see it, and we're going to extrude it just like we would a part. And I'm going to make this 0.5 inches. You guys might need to measure the wood. I'm choosing 0.5 as just a kind of an easy number to enter. Yours might be a little bit thicker than 0.5 or maybe a little bit thinner. Go ahead and measure those boards, those sample pallet wood boards, to kind of see what the dimension is, and use that for your thickness. I'm going to stick with 0.5 for this case. I'm going to click OK, and there's my part, my front. I'm going to do a sketch on top of that, and I'm going to make my hole in the front. I'm going to make that hole 1.25 inches. You might have a bigger hole, smaller hole, depending on the size of your bird. Finish that sketch and extrude that hole. I don't want it to come out, I want it to cut out, so I'm going to click this second part to cut that hole through, and I'm done with my first part. Alright, well here's where the good thing about drawing in an assembly is we can draw our sides, our back, our roof, our bottom, all based off of our other parts that we already have drawn. So I'm going to hit this return. You can see how I still have this grayed out, and this is my part front 1. Okay, I'm ready to do my next part, so I'm going to hit return to bring me back into the assembly, and I'm going to create another part. Okay, so you're only going to do one of these at a time, and this one I'm going to call it right side. Click OK, and my right side is going to extend from here all the way back. Okay, my left side will be over off of this side going back, and so on. So it's a good idea to know kind of how this thing is going to actually be nailed together. I'm going to rotate by holding Shift, press my mouse wheel down. I'm going to rotate so I can see this side, and I'm going to click the back side of this front piece. Okay, and now you see that the assembly goes gray, and I'm now in my right side part. So I'm going to start 2D sketch, roll it back to the back side, and click that side. Here's a new tool to you guys, is project geometry. I'm going to project geometry, and what project geometry does is it allows me to trace different lines on the birdhouse. So as I hover over them, they turn white. Because I'm doing the right side view and I'm drawing the back, so it's actually on the left side here, but I'm going to click and that line now goes yellow. Okay, another tool, offset. Offset is going to be taking this line, I'm going to click it and drag towards the center, and I'm going to enter in the thickness of that board, 0.5. So I've offset this line 0.5 inches away from itself. Okay, and now I'm going to trace over the top of that line. So now I have two lines 0.5 inches apart from one another. All right, I want this side to follow this edge and down. So what I'm going to need to do is project geometry on this top edge as well. Okay, take your line tool, come from the corner, and I'm going to extend this line along this yellow, and I'm going to extend it beyond where this needs to be. And here's why. You have a tool called extend, and what extend does, if you hover over at the end of a line, it will extend till it hits the closest line to it. So click, and that line now is extended to the next line. And then I'm going to trim this little piece off by hitting the trim tool and trim away that little piece. And now we got that end. I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to project geometry, click this line down here, take my line tool, draw beyond where it needs to be, extend, and trim. So there's my part that follows the contours of my birdhouse. Finish the sketch, extrude, and you'll see that this is coming out 1 inch. Now here's where your dimensions on your drawing come into play. I want my inside of my birdhouse to be 4 inches deep, so I'm going to change that to 4 inches and click OK. So there's my second part. I'm going to hit return, and I'm going to go up there and hit the home so it revolves around. I've got this plane, or this invisible blue box. That's this work plane right here. If I right click on that work plane and go down to visibility, that work plane will go away. You can see how these are blending into one another. So if you go to view, visual style, do shaded with edges, and now you'll be able to see kind of your parts separated a little bit easier. Go back to the assemble tab. Okay, let's create our next part. This is going to be the left side, so the left side of the birdhouse extending back, L-E-F-T. We're going to find our folder. Folder is going to be in your Google My Drive. Click OK. All right, I'm going to rotate this around, click this side, start 2D sketch, click this side. Same thing, we're going to repeat the process on this other side. Project geometry, click this line, offset that line 0.5 inches, draw from top to bottom along there, and then project geometry. I'm going to pick both of these lines, this line and this line, and use my line tool and do this both at the same time. I'm going to use my line tool along the top edge, my line tool along the bottom edge, extend top, extend bottom, trim top, trim bottom, and finish the sketch. Go to extrude. Remember, we made it 4 inches, so we're going to make this side 4 inches. Click OK, and return. Hit the home button,